Hi, I'm Lisa. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. Today I have another trope video for you. Today I'm going to be recommending childhood friends to lovers novels. Now, I have two fantasy paranormal novels, and the rest are historical, with one of them being a holiday novel. And all these are books that I loved, that I enjoyed. So let's get to the recommendations. My first recommendation is To Tame a Highland Warrior by Karen Marie Moning. This is the second book in the Highlander series and is the only one that doesn't have any time travel. Well, I wouldn't say that books 6 and 7 have time travel either, but this is the only one with a heroine who isn't from present day. This focuses on Gavriel and Jillian. Gavriel is a berserker. He discovered that he was a berserker, he became a berserker at an early age when his village was being attacked by a clan of berserker hunters. He and Jillian met a few years earlier. She was 10 years old. No, they met 2 years later, if I remember correctly. She was 10 years old and he was 16. He was hiding out in the woods because of what he had become and that he didn't understand it, and also because he believes that his father is responsible for his mother's death. And Jillian is part of a family of her father's a laird, Gibraltar Sinclair. She spent months trying to gain Gavriel's trust before she was able to take him to her home where he was fostered. A few years later, the Sinclair keep Castle Sinclair was attacked by the same clan that attacked Gavriel's family and village, and he believes that as long as he's there, he's a threat. And Jillian is almost 16 at this by this time, and has fallen in love with Gavriel, but during this time he's under another name, which I'm not going to give because it could be a spoiler from the first book. But she tells him she's in love with him, and he tells her that he needs to go. And she kisses him, and they both feel this instant, earth shaking connection, but he denies it happening when she insists that it happened. And fast forward, like what, 14, 15 years, and he receives a summons from Gibraltar telling him to come for Jillian. And when he gets there, when he returns to Castle Sinclair, he discovers that he is there to vie for her hand in marriage against two other men because her parents have not been able to get her to get married, and she's been avoiding marriage at every turn because all she wants is Gavriel. I love this story. There is lots of witty banter, humor. There's also mutual pining. I love the chemistry between them. And I know some people think this is boring compared to the other books, but just, give it a chance. Again, no time travel. The Fae don't make an appearance. This is between a supernatural hero and the woman that he loves, and how he learns how to accept and appreciate who and what he is, how he learns his history and his culture and his lineage, and his uncle. Oh gosh, his uncle is just is hilarious. Oh man, absolutely adore him. Just give it a chance. I really love this book, and I do highly recommend it. My next recommendation is The Fae King's Curse by Jamie Schlosser. And this is between Kieran and Quinn. Quinn and Kieran meet when they are 12 years old. Kieran is a Fae from another realm, and where it's a day in our realm, it's a year in his. But he goes there every Fae year, every her day, on his birthday to visit her, and they grow up together. They form a bond and become really good friends. He's also blind, and he cannot get his sight back because he's blinded from a curse. He cannot get his sight back until he can see his fated mate, which, you know, is tricky. But when she turns 18, she has to leave for college, and when Kieran shows up, she tells him she cannot see him anymore, because she's leaving for college the next day. So, Kieran hears the regret in her voice and believes that the right thing to do, of course, is take her, as abduct her, yeah, and take her to his realm. I know I said, yeah, but hear me out. And she learns more about the curse. There's things going on that they need to investigate, and they get a lot closer, and it's really good. It's a really good story. I enjoyed this story more than I thought I would, and I do highly recommend it. It was one of my 5-star reads from last year. So give it a chance. Don't let the cover fool you. Just, if you love an intense fantasy romance, read it. My next recommendation is Again the Magic by Lisa Kleypas. This book is well loved in the booktube community for a reason. This is a very intense, passionate, sweeping romance between McKenna and Aileen. She is a daughter of nobility, and he is one of their servants, and he started serving them as a stable hand when he was just a boy, and when she was little. So they literally grew up together, but as they became older, um, in their teens, they fell in love, and their chemistry, their love for each other is intense, and they want to be together, but they know that because of societal standards, they can't. When Aileen's father finds out about their relationship, he sends McKenna away and orders Aileen to end things with him and convince him never to come back before he leaves, and threatening to utterly ruin him if she didn't. So she had no choice but to obey her father, which ended up hurting which ended up hurting McKenna deeply. Fast forward 10 years, he's back. He's made himself wealthy in America. He and his business partner have shown up to their house, and he is there with a vengeance. He wants to get closer to Aileen just to break her heart. But there are things that happen that he does not know about. There's something that happened to Aileen that he does not know about. There was an accident shortly after he left that had left her legs burned and scarred. And there is also a secondary love story between her sister and his business partner. And this is a really, really beautifully written story. I did give it only 4 stars because I have a hard time with characters that hold a grudge for so long. But other than that, this story is really beautifully written, very passionate. If you love intense, passionate love stories, you'll enjoy this one. This was really good. This next book, I debated whether or not to include it because just including this could be a spoiler. So if you want to skip this one, by all means, that's fine. I'm sorry, I had to start sucking on a cough drop because my cough was kicking in. But anyway, the book is The Highwayman by Kerrigan Byrne. This is a romance between Dorian and Farah. In the prologue, Farah meets a boy in an orphanage. His name's Duggan. They become fast friends. They become really close. And it's just a sweet, innocent story. She teaches him how to read. And they become really close. and they decide that they want to get married. So they meet in the chapel, and Duggan leads her through a hand fasting ceremony. But things take a dark turn real quick. One of the priests tries to force himself on her, and she runs away and goes to Duggan and stays with him the rest of the night because it's the only way that she can feel safe. And then the priest and one of the nuns, I think, go after him, and Farah doesn't know what happened to him. She assumes that he's dead. Years later, she is abducted by Dorian, and both need something from each other. And they forge this passionate romance, this relationship. She tells him to give her a child for whatever reason, but he tells her he cannot unclothe himself. If they do sleep together, he has to be fully clothed. He even leaves gloves on. And that part, you know, the some of the aspects of this didn't really click with me, which is why I gave it 4 stars. Outside of that, this was so good. Karen Gabern writes really dark historical romances, and this one was so good, and I can see why so many people love it. Now this one I'm cheating a little bit because one of them was an adult when they met, but my next recommendation is Olivia and the Masked Duke by Grace Calloway. This is the first book in the Society of Angels series, which I actually got a kick out of. I remember watching Charlie's Angels when I was growing up. And Olivia is, I can't remember if she was 8 years old or 12 years old, probably 12, when she fell through some ice and Ben had rescued her. And Ben turned out to be a friend of her family. And so she grew up knowing him, seeing him through even his most difficult times, and had fallen in love with him. So by the time of her come out, she decides that she's going to tell Ben that she is in love with him. But when he does, he tells her he wants to be just friends. He wants things to be as they always were, because he feels that he is too dark, that he does not want to taint her innocence, so to speak. Well, little does he know that after issuing that heartbreak on her, she meets, what is her name? Oh yeah, of course. She meets Charlie, who is a woman who is establishing the Society of Angels, which is a detective agency by women for women, because other detective agencies that are run by men tend to ignore or discount cases involving the needs of women. So Olivia and 2 of her friends join the Society of Angels. There is disguises, there is intrigue, there is, it's just so good, so fun. They go through self-defense training and the whole gamut. It is just so much fun. It's a 5-star read for me. I absolutely adore this book and highly recommend it, and I look forward to continuing this series, so check it out. Next is Wicked by Jill Barnett, and this is the 3rd book in the Border Bride series, the 3rd and last book. And this is, our hero is Tobin, who in the first 2 books is a squire to the hero in the first book. This is a few years later, but when he was younger and Sophie was younger, they pretty much grew up on the same lands, and he was playing the blind man. They called it blind man. I think I remember calling it blind man's bluff when I was a kid. And he was blindfolded, and the girls that played with him that had developed, he would go after him, and, you know, and Sophie accused him of cheating. And so he says, if you can prove I'm going to prove to you that I am not cheating. If you cannot prove that I am cheating, you owe me a kiss. So she takes one of her, whatever, some kind of cloth belt or whatever, puts it around him over the blindfold that he already has, and he's still able to find her and the other girls. But when they meet, or when they're supposed to meet for that kiss, he leaves her, he stands her up, and he's with his friends. I can't remember if this happened during that time or a few years later. But they're all watching to see if she'll wait. And when she walks in on their conversation about it, she's understandably heartbroken and doesn't want to have anything to do with him. A few years later, they meet again. She still doesn't want to get married and doesn't want to marry him especially, even though they're starting to get on a bit again. But then, her parents, she is also ward of King Edward, and she finds out that she is being betrothed to Tobin. So they end up in a marriage of convenience, and a lot of things happen. There is a part where they are separated for a while, which I normally don't like. But on her end, it's actually pretty interesting because it involves the history of the warrior nuns, which I find fascinating. But give this book a chance. I do recommend the first two books first and then read that, but they can all be read as standalones. And then my last recommendation, and I love this book so much, is Once Upon a Kiss Gone Horribly Wrong by Bree Wolfe. I love Bree Wolfe's writing. I'm looking forward to continuing the series. This is a prequel to the, I can't remember the, what? Well, anyway, it's a prequel to a series. But anyway, this is a very sweet romance. There is no steam. But I didn't mind because this, it's just got the holiday feels. This is between Tobias and Anne, who met when they were, well, they became really good friends when they were just 8 years old, and grew up together, best friends, always there for each other, always had each other's backs. Well, when Anne comes of age, her cousins, very well-meaning cousins in fact, coax her into kissing him, into kissing Tobias under the mistletoe. And his brother tries to convince him to do the same. Well, they don't want to ruin their friendship, so they're very reluctant, but they decide to go through it anyway, and of course it's clumsy. It just goes wrong, hence the title. So basically the story is about them coming to terms with their feelings and ultimately getting to a place where they're willing to admit how they feel. But unfortunately, they assume the other doesn't like them in that way because of the awkwardness between them. But, oh man, this is just a cute, sweet romance, holiday romance, and I really, really highly recommend it. Anyway, those are my recommendations. Thank you for watching. Please like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and tell me in the comments, have you read any of these books, and what do you think of them? And do you have any other recommendations for this trope? Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.